In this video, I'm going to give you some ideas for line lessons for pre-K through second grade. Now, I don't actually teach pre-K, but all of these lessons can be adapted up or down to suit your needs. And I think there's things here for pre-K and possibly all the way up to third. Now, let's make some lines. In kinder, I start with this book, Lines That Wiggle. Now, you can do this as a read aloud, but I strongly recommend this video, the Vooks version. Now, there are other videos of people reading this online, but this Vooks version is animated and it's absolutely adorable. After the video, we get paper and crayons and everybody draws a line right across the paper. Let's draw a straight line all the way across. Now let's try a wavy line. It goes up and down and up and down. Let's see if you can draw a zigzag, 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 zigzag. And then this one I like to call the castle line. You go over, up, over, down, over, up, over, down. So this is a very easy draw along just to get everybody started at the beginning of the year. And then you can finish up that lesson by doing another easy draw along with the lines. A sun is easy, so is a bug. This is a good lesson just for working on motor skills, and control in drawing to get past that scribble scrabble stage. In the first grade, we do the line collage. Now I start with lines that wiggle again. And then we get 2 pieces of paper, and you want to have different colored papers. And then after we watch lines that wiggle, we have a draw along, as I demonstrate. A straight line, a curved line, a wavy line. Then we do a zigzag and a castle and maybe a mountain line. Then after we do that, we just spend the rest of the period cutting it out. Now, depending on how much time you have, that can be your whole lesson. The video, the drawing, and the cutting. If you've got a little more time, you can go ahead and make artwork with those lines. But what I like to do is just have them do the cutting on the first day because they really need that practice time, using the scissors. And I have them put their work not individually per person, but I have them put all the blue lines in a pile and the red lines in a pile and the yellow lines. And I explain that when we come back next week, you're not necessarily going to get your own line back. We're going to use all the lines, so we just make a big pile of cut paper. And this really helps as well because some kids really are going to struggle. So I go ahead and I, cut some extra lines so when they come back next week and we have all the piles of the cut lines, they assume that they have done them all. Then this is what we do the next week. Now, I've had classes where we do it a little smaller and they ended up doing it all in the same week, but I like to spread it out into the 2 weeks. You could definitely take these papers and make something more step by step, making something that has arms and legs or a sun or a spider, that sort of thing. But I like them just to be, especially at the beginning of the year, to have this time just for the motor development. So basically they're just using the glue stick to make a collage, and sometimes I give them, the coloring materials as well. Now these 2 I really got a kick out of. This year I gave them paint sticks to make their lines with, and this guy went all out. I really got a kick out of this one. So you can adapt the beginning stage of watching that video, making the lines and cutting it out, to all sorts of second steps, depending on how elaborate you want to make your lesson. I like them to just be able to make the free-form collages. In second grade, we hit lines pretty hard. So we start with the line song, which, if you're not familiar with it, is absolutely terrific way to teach them the terminology for the lines. We're no longer just talking about wavy and wiggly, but we're actually getting into vertical and horizontal. So the first thing I do is I show them this video all the way through. And this is, like I said, a really great, catchy song that gives them the names for a lot of lines. Then we have a worksheet. Now, I am usually very loosey-goosey. It is very unusual for me to even do a draw along, much less something as rigidly step by step as this. But the second graders actually love this. They really get into it. They are really invested in doing this the right way. And I also give this as an opportunity to choose markers, pencils, colored pencils, crayons. It's really beginning of the year, getting acquainted with all the materials in the art room. So when we do this, we do it step by step. And I replay the video, but then I stop after horizontal. And we talk about horizontal, and I make, hand gestures, and I have everyone make the hand gestures across. We look around the room to see where can we see horizontal lines in the room. And everybody draws the horizontal lines. Then we do vertical, same idea. I play the video till we stop at vertical. We look for vertical lines in the room. We draw the vertical lines. Diagonal is a little trickier to find diagonal lines in your room, but I also am still doing the hand gestures. I'm making an X with my arms, while you're singing along, so that we're getting the terms for diagonal. Curvy, wavy, broken, all pretty easy. When we get to fancy, that's a little bit more of a challenge because they think they need to make the lines exactly the same. And so you got to get them all over that hump a little bit, that no, fancy means you can do your lines any way you want. And so maybe sometimes they do different versions, and so they're very proud of how fancy they can make their line. Now the next two, we've got to pause and talk a little bit because these are a little bit more of a challenge. And one of the things that's irritating me is that my district has changed organic to freeform, and all of the materials I have set up already say organic, not freeform, and most of the resources we use say organic instead of freeform. But that's one of the challenges of teaching. So when we do geometric and organic, I have everybody stop, and we stand up, and we do sort of a robot dance. Very straight movements as I move my arms and legs, and I say, geometric, geometric, and really emphasize that this is like a robot. Everything is very straight. And then we go to organic. And then I'm like a noodle. Everybody do the noodle dance. This is organic. This is waving around. This is also called freeform. But you can make your organic line any wiggly way you want. So then we move on to the next one. And this one is a challenge because on the video, their sample for gestural isn't really a gesture. The person that they're drawing a person, but it's just sort of laying there. So then we briefly talk about what a gesture is, and that it's an action. Now, you all know how to draw a stick man, right? Okay, so we're going to draw a stick man, but he's not going to just be standing there. We want your stick man to be running or kicking or jumping. That's a gesture. Easy enough. Then we move to zigzag, which of course everybody can do a zigzag, 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 and a spiral. Around and around and around and around. From there, you can take this lesson anywhere you want to go. Now, if you're one of those people that, have got a really short art time, this is probably going to use up the whole time. But I've got 50 minutes, so this is going to take up about 2/3 of the time, and then we've got a little more time. So one thing I like to do is just have open draw time. So see what you can do just using these lines. And you can see Caroline here really got into it. She did a great job filling out her form, and then she did a really good job making, drawing a picture with all of those lines. Another thing that I like to do, and I actually came up with this during the pandemic when we couldn't share materials, everybody had to have their own, is I gave each child a collection, like a light string and a heavy cord and a wire and a ribbon, a variety of things. And then I put up on the whiteboard a shape and asked to see, could they make this shape with their string? And was there some kind of string or wire that was better? Was there one that didn't work? And they actually really cut into this. I ran out of time, and they're like, no, we want to keep going. Another thing you can do, again, depending on, your time constraints and how much space and if you want to, get involved in another activity, is having them draw the lines in the air with their finger. Of course, the thing I always already mentioned of, looking in the room, for those kinds of lines. Or you could have them work in pairs and, have one draw the line on the air or on their back or their hand and sing, if their partner can guess what that line is. You can give each student a pencil and paper, call out lines and see, if they can make a picture with these lines, or conversely, they can call out the lines to you. The next week we do one of their favorite projects of the whole year. And this is just, a one-day easy activity that can also be done in a very short class time and also can be adjusted for older and younger kids. You can keep doing this all the way up through high school. And we talked about last week that lines have names, different kinds of lines have names. You draw them in a certain way, but you don't have to draw lines like that. You can draw lines any way you want. You can use your imagination and do all sorts of creative things. But what I want you to do today is use your imagination and figure out what these lines could be. This gives you an idea of how you can take a squiggle or a line and turn it into a picture. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail here because I actually have a whole video just telling you how to teach this lesson. And you do it step by step to get them thinking, which is you put up the simple line and you have them look at it and say, what do you think this could be? But then you turn it this way and that way. And each time you turn it, it's going to look like it'd be something else. You really want to get them over the idea that there's only one thing it could be. Then after I've turned it all around and let them say what they think it is, then I show what I made it out of. And I do that 3 or 4 times. And so they get the idea that there's a lot of different things it could be. And then I hand out the index cards. Now, on the index cards, I have already made a squiggle, a line, a starting line on each one of these. And I make enough so that everybody's got maybe 3 or 4. It takes about, a pack of cards per class. And then I hand them out one by one. And it is great fun. They absolutely love it. And if they get stuck and they're like, oh, I don't know what this is, well, ask your neighbor, what do they think it could be? And it's a great collaborative project that they really love. Then I've got one more lines project that I do with second grade. In the first quarter, I really hit it hard. And again, I'm not going to go too much into depth in, this video because I have a whole video just on this assignment. But essentially, and I'm also bringing shapes into it, but essentially we're talking about geometric lines and shapes have names. They do not have wiggles. And you'll notice that I've got all warm colors here because on this assignment, I'm teaching geometric and organic, but I'm also teaching warm and cool color at the same time. Organic lines and shapes do not have names and they do have wiggles. And you can see here that I have this all in cool colors. And this is what we end up with. And it takes about 4 weeks to do this. And again, there's going to be another video that details step by step how to do this. But what they end up with is geometric work of art in warm colors and an organic work of art in cool colors. And this is so adaptable. You can use so many different supplies for this, to teach it in so many different ways. But all of those other lessons that I do in the second grade, the lines video with the worksheet and then the imagination lines are all sort of leading, those aren't finished projects. Those are just sort of exercises and they lead up to this, which is then the finished second grade project on lines. And that is everything I know about lines.